Welcome everyone. So I'm talking to Mary Powell today, and Mary is an Ashtanga Yoga practitioner and she's a yoga teacher, and she's got scoliosis as well. And I have been following her on Instagram. I love seeing her posts with her little one. I'm sure she's going to be talking about her son a little bit, and then some amazing yoga videos, obviously, and yoga poses. So welcome, Mary.
Hi, thanks for
Nice
having
to
me.
have you on today.
So nice to speak to you.
Thank you. So I thought maybe we start with just kind of, if you can give us an overview of when were you diagnosed with scoliosis? What do you know about your scoliosis and anything like this?
Okay. Okay, so I was diagnosed when I was around 15 years old. Had no idea that I had it. Actually, I was getting a clicking and then it followed by pain sensation in my shoulder, and I just went to the doctors just to kind of get it checked out. It wasn't really even causing that much problem. It was just something that was getting on my nerves, and it always only really happened when I did an overarm in tennis. It was a real specific thing. It was really odd. So I went
that sort of movement.
Yeah, and with so not even just the movement, but I think the power. You're trying to hit something. So something was obviously going on. I didn't really have a clue what it was, but the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, I think it's a torn insertion." So where the muscle inserts into the bone. Here you go. I'll refer you to a physio. Went to the physio, and she was like, "No, you don't. You have a torn insertion. Bend over." Looked at my spine. She was like, "You've got scoliosis." So they then referred me to the scoliosis specialist in my nearest hospital, and to go and get checked out. And I think I had an X-ray, and they measured the curves because it was a double curve, and I can't really remember too much of the appointment because it was nearly 20 years ago. So I just didn't really know what it was at the age of 15. So I think from back then it was still classed as severe. It was I think it was either 42 or 47 degrees.
Oh wow. Okay.
I remember which. I had no clue whatsoever. That was the upper curve, and then the lower curve was I think maybe either 15 or 19, like between one of those. It was in the teens.
So a big thoracic curve, and then a little compensating curve in the lumbar spine. Okay.
Well, yeah, and I had no clue whatsoever, and whatever was going on in the shoulder was just was a sign that that it was there. And that was it really. The issue that was going on in the shoulder kind of just faded away, and there was something bigger going on. But I didn't. But that was the only pain that I got. So I was 15 years old. I was like, yeah, I was really lucky. I wasn't getting any lower back pain or any other pain anywhere else, and I was really sporty. And like I said, I literally didn't even know that I had it. So they did say about having the rod put down my spine, and I guess my thought was that, look, I'm not getting any pain. That sounds pretty full on. So I actually declined it. I also didn't really know too much about it, and I can't even really remember how much they explained about it. They said it was there was risks involved, and it just all sounded just too much. And that I'd literally I didn't know that I had it, and I'd literally just found out.
So was it visible?
I don't know, because I'd never had a photo taken of my back. So the thing, it must have been visible, because whatever was going on in my shoulder, it basically, I've got quite a winged right scapula. So I guess all the muscles are kind of developed in the wrong place and things like that. So to have a winged scapula, and it's because there is, because of that upper curve, it must have been, visible, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, and I don't even know. So they said it was idiopathic scoliosis. They didn't know why, but they also said that I had actually really good posture for the severity of it as well. So, which was probably attributed to me being so active. So that was really good. And essentially, they kind of, from what I remember, they said that maybe because I was like, oh, if it got any worse, would having the operation later on be like a possibility? And I think from what I remember, they said that yeah, it was, but only to a certain age, from what I can remember. And then I got a kind of list of stuff that might happen because of having scoliosis. So it's at that degree, it's very, it will deteriorate over time. If it gets really bad, then people end up in like wheelchairs and difficulty breathing. Pain will get worse. It's really not the best outlook, which is why I then asked about, if it did get worse and I felt that I needed the operation. That's when that question came up. But that was it, really. That, like, from what I'm sure there was other stuff that was said, but in general, I was discharged. I didn't have any other appointments.
No physio or anything?
No, and never seen them since.
Oh, really? So you weren't even called for checkups or anything?
No, not at all. And actually thinking about it, that that would be great if someone did follow up and check on it. But yeah, no, they just must have got a discharge letter or something. So yeah, so that was at the age of 15, and I didn't really, I don't know whether I didn't really think about it. Obviously, it was, there on my mind, but I didn't really start looking into stuff until maybe I was kind of 19 or 20, where other options started to come up. So yeah, that's how I was diagnosed, and that's yeah, kind of all the help I received, really. I mean, I have no doubt that if I went back to the doctors and asked for another appointment, they'd like get me one and things. But
it's not really necessary, I guess.
No, I definitely, I'm going to get another X-ray. But yeah, it's definitely being managed well.
Good. So when or at what age did you get into yoga?
Around 20. Like I said, I was super sporty, really active, and I was working in a sports centre at the time, and yeah, back then it was like, ooh, like brand new, like this is a new thing, yoga class, and it was free, so I gave it a go, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. I didn't, there was no spark of like, oh, this is going to help my spine or whatever. It was just, I just really enjoyed it and just started doing it, every week, and kind of built up from there. But I was still doing a lot of gym work and a lot of running.
Right.
Okay. Which, in hindsight, I think running was quite detrimental to my back, which I'm sure, in fact, I've heard other people saying as well that they've found running a little bit counterintuitive to whatever's going on in the back as well. So so yeah, I kind of dipped in and out of yoga. I mean, it was always kind of there, but it took quite a long time to get any kind of consistency and regularity with it.
Yeah.
So,
and did you find it helped your back, or did you just really enjoy it? And
so I didn't really realize it helped my back until so essentially what happened was that I was doing the odd yoga class, but predominantly doing gym and yoga work, and then the dynamic started, not dynamic, it started to kind of swap around. So yoga, I started doing less and less yoga, and less and less less and less running, and less gym, and more yoga. So the balance changed, and obviously then the more I started doing yoga, then things started to I started to notice stuff, and like I said, I still wasn't really getting back pain, so it wasn't anything about pain management.
mm-hmm.
I probably didn't really notice it was doing too much until maybe just before my teach training, when I decided to do it. In fact, I went on a retreat maybe like a year before that. So when I started to do more like yoga, maybe 3-4 days a week rather than just maybe once or twice, and was doing a few more poses, more challenging poses. And when you really start, you don't get in touch with your body like straight away. It took quite a few years, and
it takes some time, of course. So just for anyone who's maybe not familiar with Ashtanga Yoga so much, can you just give us a little overview?
Where do I start?
Yes. A little summary.
So Ashtanga is obviously there's lots of philosophy behind it, but if we look at it from a physical point of view, from the scoliosis side of it, it can be quite an intense practice, but it actually doesn't have to be. You can work at your own level because you do the practice independently. And you do the same sequence. I mean, there's different sequences you can move on to as you progress, but in general, you do the same sequence, or whatever sequence you're on.
So what you're saying, independently, meaning you don't follow a class, you don't follow a teacher, but you practice at your own pace?
Yeah, so everyone, there's the primary series, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, nowhere near those ends. The primary series is where you begin. And actually, one of the purposes of the asana of the primary series is to help build awareness in the body and help your posture. So I've personally found it's a very clever sequence. And that's where the work really, really began, on making a difference in my posture, and the strength and the functionality of everything. So it's the same. You do the same sequence, and even if you go to a class. So in the mornings when I teach from 6:30 until 9 a.m., which sounds like an incredibly long class, but you're only really going to be there between an hour and an hour and a half, wherever you're up to in the sequence. I teach you the sequence until you know it off by heart, and then once you've got that sequence memorized, you can just come in anytime, as long as you're finished by 9 o'clock, and you do that sequence. And what I do is, as a teacher, is come around and adjust. So and you will do that sequence if you're encouraged to practice up to 6 days a week if you can. Personally, I think if you've got scoliosis in the spine, it's worth taking an extra rest day or an extra easy day from that, especially when you're first starting out as well. But yeah, like working up to 6 days a week. And so that's great, because you know that sequence off by heart, so you can do it anywhere, and you don't necessarily have to be in a room with a teacher. And I just think it's incredible because I just find it really, really helpful, because you're doing the same sequence daily, and there's, I can't remember how many postures in the primary series. There's a lot of postures. So I mean, it's not like 100% balanced, but it's pretty balanced, and you're doing those movements every single day. And the main thing that I always say to people when they're looking into doing yoga for scoliosis is that it builds body awareness, and there's no better way of building body awareness than by doing the same thing kind of day in, day out. You get to know your body inside out, where all the imbalances are, and strengths and weaknesses, tightness, and you really get to know your body, how it moves, things that aggravate it, that you need to be careful of. And you just, that's probably one of the main things.
So do you help people adjust their practice according to their scoliosis, or do you get a lot of people with scoliosis in your classes specifically, or would you work one-to-one with them?
So actually, I haven't actually had lots of people, particularly that have scoliosis, that are even aware of it. I get quite a few people that just kind of come in and aren't
you see it.
Yeah, and you can kind of, and you can see it, and lots of people do have milder forms of scoliosis and stuff, so that's really interesting to work with. I've only really worked with more severe cases maybe once or twice. So I've only really got experience of like working with myself and anyone that, like I said, that it's not been too severe a case. That are in my class right now.
So I often get the question, which poses should I not be doing? When I have scoliosis. So what's not safe? What would you how would you answer? I mean, I know how I answer this question. What would you say to anyone asking this?
I mean, I can only talk from personal experience, and my personal experience is that nothing's off the cards, but you have to approach things slowly, mindfully, and build up. There's a few different views out there of whether back bends are safe, and whether twists are safe. In fact, the two main questions that I get actually are back bends and twists. Most part. From my personal experience, I've found back bends to be incredibly helpful, but but it has to, like I said, it's taken a long time to build up, and it has caused a few niggles, but those niggles have always been a way of showing me what I need to work on. So, for example, one of the main things, actually, because I've got a twist in my hips, my right side is incredibly tight, and I was starting to get some pinching in my right lower back. So I eased off doing it. I mean, I'm sure you've possibly seen some of the photos on my Instagram. And they're deep back bends, so I ease off, but I use it as a kind of almost like a map of the body to see where it tells me basically where I need strength and where I need to find space, and that it can sometimes take a while to work through, but working through it, it's never come back, and it's always been for the better. I think there's a bit of a misconception on, if you're injured, you like completely stop, and I do agree to a certain extent, but I also think that injury can be or niggles, or whatever you want to call them, they can be incredibly useful and telling and helpful. But you have to be willing to take the step back and explore that slowly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And this,
absolutely. And
yeah,
maybe
and this,
take slightly change direction.
yeah, definitely. And be mindful and use it as a tool, and use it as a therapy. And the same with twists. I know twists are, it's a little bit different, and especially if you've got, as I have as well, a twist in the ribs, but it can still, again, if you approach it with a mindful approach. So the question is, should I be doing twists if I've got especially an upper curve or a twist in the ribs, and I'm twisting into that curve? Am I making it worse? Yes, if you don't think about what you're doing, you could, I guess, exacerbate it. But actually, again, if you build that awareness within the body, and you know which side is kind of relatively easier and which side is harder, you would work more with the other side and take it a little bit, know where to kind of know, not how to not go so deep, and use the strength, because that's the other thing. I think yoga is very much seen as a flexibility improver, whereas I think it's incredibly important to especially for people with scoliosis, is to work on strength.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of hypermobility in one side possibly than there is the other, depending on what's going on. So so yeah, that's, I think, yeah.
So do you feel, I mean, I have seen pictures of your back, obviously, and I mean, I think it's incredible. I mean, I see the scoliosis because I work with it all the time, but it's not very visible at all now. I mean, depending on obviously how you I guess photograph it. But do you feel that your curvature has decreased?
Yeah, definitely. So there's two things well, more than two things are going on in my back, but two predominant things that are going on in my spine. And it's not just the spine has a curve, it's also that there's twists in it, and that's what causes some of the rotation. There's a rotation within the spine, I think in two places actually, and that exacerbates the curve as well. So I've lost my trail of thought.
You feel that it has decreased?
Yeah, definitely. And 100% that's a lot of it is down to yoga, but also I see an osteopath as well. I kind of think that if you're going to work on helping your scoliosis, just doing one thing isn't necessarily going to have the most effect. I think if you combine it with other things, I think massage therapy is incredibly good, and worthwhile. Bowen therapy, and I've tried like a few different things, and actually every single time there's been some straightening, and particularly with the rotation, which, so I don't know about you, but sometimes the yoga will do so much, but there's sometimes where you get a little bit stuck, and you need that little bit of extra help, and that's when I go to my osteopath, because there is, I think, some bits and pieces that you just can't, you just need help with, and you might need a bit of manipulation with. I think a lot of my rotation came from having quite a sticky diaphragm, so to speak. Lots of my osteopath works a lot with fascia, and I think there's only so much that you can do with, especially deep in the abdominal area, with fascia and yoga, but having that combination, I think, is, for me personally, and it'll be different for everyone, has really worked. And the yoga, I think, all then helps keep everything that the osteopath does in place. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you've got a son, obviously. How old is he?
He's 10 months old. Yeah. And starting to learn to walk. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember those times. You have to baby proof everything in the
Yeah,
house.
we are. Yeah, we're at that point.
Good. So another question I get asked about is about pregnancy and scoliosis. And I was the same, I have to say, when I was thinking about having children, I was thinking, ooh, how would, pregnancy affect my body? Obviously, can my body actually cope with
Yeah.
producing a baby and any of that? What was your experience?
My thoughts were exactly the same as what yours were. I was worried that my body wouldn't be, like you said, wouldn't be able to cope with having a little human inside of me. But it was fine, actually. I think I would say my curve probably regressed a little bit throughout pregnancy. I wasn't able to practice as much. Obviously I wasn't practicing as intensely, but also I was quite sick as well, so my activity levels went right down. So there was, I was sitting a lot more, and because I was being quite sick as well, and my diaphragm, like I said, my diaphragm was a little bit had quite a lot of sticky fascia around it and things. Being nauseous and sick obviously affects the area as well, so I think that had quite a big impact on it. But I didn't. My worry was, I think, that my hips were going to, maybe I was going to get sciatica, or the hip. I can't remember what the PDP is. It PDP? The thing that goes on the pelvis. That
yes, I know what you mean. Pelvis.
Yeah.
Pelvis girdle,
Placia?
something.
Yeah.
They changed the name of it. I think it had a different name before.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
pelvic girdle pain it is, I think.
Yeah. And I didn't. He was actually 6.5 weeks premature, so actually I didn't go to full term. That wasn't to do with the scoliosis, that was a different matter. But so he didn't get as heavy as he was supposed to do, so that might have come into play. But throughout the pregnancy, I didn't get any pain. I think the only thing I really noticed actually was that I favor my right side, and that just happened. I kind of regressed back to that a little bit whilst pregnant, just because you're trying to be the most comfortable that you can be, and I wasn't practicing, and my awareness wasn't really within my spine. It was obviously around my tummy area and stuff. So yeah, it affected it in that way, but I didn't get any pain, and I really attribute that to having a regular practice and being strong
before.
Yeah, absolutely. Because once you're pregnant, there's not much that you can do. So having that prep, was definitely saving grace, and something really important as well, like within yoga, you work within the pelvic floor, with the pelvic floor, and that absolutely helped. And the journey postpartum has been really interesting as well.
So when did you kind of start to practice again?
Yeah, relatively soon, actually. So I had a C-section.
Right. Okay.
And he didn't really get that big, so I didn't particularly have abdominal separation, and I just didn't get too large, so my body did recover a lot quicker. But and as I checked in with the osteopath, I got checked over, and the doctors and things, and everything went really smoothly. I was very lucky. I had a very good C-section experience. I mean, when I say I started practicing, I maybe did like a downward facing dog, like 3-4 weeks afterwards, or maybe only
Right.
4 weeks. So it wasn't like I was doing like a main practice. I was just doing the odd like gentle kind of stretch and like breathing essentially, and I just built on it from there. And I was doing a lot of work with the pelvic floor and with my abdominals to strengthen that back up. I was really I was just really trying to take care of bringing stability to the pelvis, because that's an area that haven't had a lot, I don't have pain there, but I'm aware that if I don't have stability there, then I will get pain. I'll get lower back pain and tightness and stuff like that. So I was really postpartum pelvic floor and core stability were high on the agenda. So that was mainly what I was doing. Scoliosis wise, actually, what I would say is kind of during pregnancy, it wasn't nothing really went on, nothing other than kind of maybe the curve regressing a little bit, and because I got a bit weaker, nothing really went on there. Postpartum feeding, I really feel that's where it kind of stuff starts to happen. And I actually have had a bit of back pain going on, particularly aches and pains in my upper back, and it's the same with most people as well, but I think it's especially if having an upper curve and a wing shoulder blade, if I'm holding him in one arm, and the stronger arm is the one where there's the curve, that does exacerbate it. So I kind of feel like I'm not so much now because he's feeding a lot less, but there wasn't enough, I didn't have enough hours in the day anyway, but like doing like half an hour of yoga really wasn't contending with like hours of feeding. But
yeah, of course, yeah,
I'd say that's kind of I've struggled a bit more postpartum than whilst I was pregnant.
And also it's the carrying as well, isn't it? As they get a little bit bigger now, I guess he's still need to carry him a lot.
Absolutely.
So he starts to walk.
Yeah, and I'm still breastfeeding, so there's still the my everything's still kind of more flexible than it should be. Relaxing is still there in the body, so I'm still concentrating a lot more on strength than flexibility. So that's been a really interesting kind of discovery anyway, to do with my spine, and especially because I lost a lot of strength whilst I was pregnant, and the curve regressing a little bit. Working more on strength has actually, I think, been a lot. I've learned a lot more, and it's been really, really helpful. And I would say probably had the most impact on helping my curve, actually.
So are you back to the Ashtanga practice, or have you like added I don't know, like I remember I added Pilates to the mix after I had my kids. I just felt that that's what my body needed, really. And my practice completely changed, I have to say, from before. But
yeah, I am back to practicing Ashtanga. It is I was practicing relatively as soon as I was safe and I could, post birth, but more than anything, that's kind of mindfully as well, because the focus is there so much on the breath. So I personally really need that space, as many mums do anyway, but I find it really, really therapeutic mentally as well. But yeah, I do extra stuff. So I do I probably should do a little bit more core. I do my core and then I feel strong and I'm like, oh, it kind of like fades away, and then I get reminded again that I probably should be doing more, so I start doing it again. But I just listen to my body. So I don't know about you, but when I'm working, when I'm doing the sequence and the niggles, the injuries come up, it's kind of works its way up in my body. So sometimes it's like hips, And then once that's kind of worked its way through, then it's maybe around the diaphragm, and then it goes to the shoulders and maybe in the neck, and it kind of
moving. Yes,
yeah,
for me it's the opposite. It's coming down.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And everything's connected, so that's it's a bit of a given. So yeah, I just, whatever's going on, where my attention is kind of the drills that I do. So at the moment, I'm really concentrating on how I press my hands into the floor, which has a huge, is making like really big changes in my shoulders. So I'm finding that really useful. If I have anything going on in my lower back, or if I'm noticing huge imbalances in my hip, then I work on the feet and the core as well. And postpartum, it was really interesting actually. I thought I had quite a strong pelvic floor, and I do. Actually, what I've discovered is it's only on the right side. So that's something that I was really interested in, and I don't know whether you'd talking to people, whether has anyone said that they've noticed an imbalance actually within their pelvic floor, on one side being a little bit lazier than the other.
I mean, I know it from myself, and I think it takes a lot of body awareness to notice this. And it's an area that I have, like pelvis, that's really what, after pregnancy, that's where I have had most problems with, and still have, and so definitely imbalance in pelvic floor and psoas muscles.
The psoas is a huge problem, and I think for quite a lot of people, from what I understand as well. And have you noticed anything in your glutes as well?
Yes, so glutes is another topic for me at the moment. I'm working with a physio at the moment, to kind of supplement my yoga practice.
Same.
Because there isn't that much, we don't really target specific muscle groups, do we, in yoga? No. Yoga is fantastic for the overall and body awareness and all of that, and posture. But what we don't do is we don't work with muscles in isolation. And I was never a fan of it anyway. I always found it boring. But then obviously, I started to have some pain in my bum, basically on the left side.
Okay.
And then as a yogi, the first thing you want to do is stretch it out, but that just makes it worse at the end of the day. So I'm working with a physio at the moment, and I found really my left hamstring, I've got a lumbar curve, so my main problems are in the lower spine. My left hamstrings are a lot weaker. My left glutes are basically not working at all.
Same.
So but these are the things, as you say, you kind of discover them, isn't it, just by having those little niggles. And every time you have something like that, I always see it as a really positive thing, because I always learn amazing things. I always learn something new, and then as you say, it changes for the better afterwards, isn't it, once you get through this.
That's really interesting. I love hearing about other people's journeys, because we everyone's curve is different, but there definitely does seem to be similarities in things. I was doing a little bit of research, because I'm having, my left glute just doesn't fire. It just doesn't work. So I'm doing physio-esque exercises, I guess, just to kind of wake it up a little bit. It hasn't really caused any pain, but it's definitely something that you can actually even see it. There's a massive imbalance between between sides, and I think that's how I kind of discovered the pelvic floor thing as well.
Right.
Everything interconnecting. But I was doing some research, because I end up going down a rabbit hole sometimes of Google, and I was looking to see if that was a common thing, and I was actually reading that the majority of people, there was a study done, and I can't remember what study it was, but that the majority of people had one. I mean, the world over, I'm sure most people have one side stronger than the other, but a significant side of strength in the glute than the other, which is really interesting.
Yeah, interesting,
so,
definitely.
yeah, so I think they're, psoas and the glutes and pelvic floor are definitely predominant area. That's the center of the body, so that's definitely where most of my work most of it goes.
Good.
Yeah.
So do you have any kind of tips for anyone who has scoliosis and who maybe thinks about starting an Ashtanga practice, or who has maybe just started out with Ashtanga? Anything maybe to consider? Or
Take it slow. It takes everything takes time. You need to give yourself time. Don't rush. We've all been there where we get a bit excited and we're like, oh, I'd like to finish the primary series and I want to be able to do this pose and this pose, and that's already exciting. It's great to have those goals, but be mindful and don't push yourself. But also, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, because there's enough of that, and it's just, maybe you can't, but have a go with trying, because as long as you build a strong foundation and you do things mindfully, and you build up slowly, you can still try. And it does amazing things for your confidence. When you have something quite big going on in your spine, or anywhere, you don't really want people going, we can't do that, and you have a bit of a you have enough obstacles in life, and because of a curve already. So let's not add to that, and let's work with our bodies, see what their capabilities are, and I just think anything's possible, and it might not be, but give it a go. Build up to it, build that strong foundation, build the awareness, and just see how it goes, and see what happens. But the main thing, I think, is doing it as regularly as possible. And I do personally think doing, if similar, if not the same, if you're not doing it, Ashtanga sequence as regularly as possible, that's the best way to build up a knowledge of your body and awareness of your body, and to see improvements and
progression. Yes, absolutely.
the progression and stuff. And the body has to get used to, everyone's bodies opens up slowly and at a different rate, but particularly, we all have a tight side and a weaker side, and we just need that. I feel like that we need that extra time as well, to work with that, for sure. So give yourself time and just try, and doing it as regularly as possible, and building awareness. It empowers you.
Yes, absolutely. Big thing. Yes.
Take the power, and get and give it a go, because it helps, and it helps mentally. And I think that's really important, to make friends with your body, because there's a lot of negativity, I guess, surrounding.
Yes.
Or there can be. So I think building a relationship with your body is one of the most important things.
I love that, making friends with your body. Good. So how can people get in touch with you?
So
I can still hear you.
So I'm on Instagram, Mary Powell Yoga. Just send me a message. I'm not as good as answering messages nowadays with a 10-month-old, but I do answer. It might take days or weeks, but I do get to it. So you can send me a direct message there. You can email at mweir, WEIR 84@hotmail.co.uk. I've also got a Yoga for Scoliosis series on the OnStars network, Kino and Gregor, which is super exciting. There is a link on my Instagram bio.
Okay, so I will leave that in the description as well. Yeah.
Perfect. And Facebook as well, Mary Powell Yoga.
Okay.
Or Ashtanga Yoga Oxford. Many lots of different places.
So the OmStars one, is that a what is that, a practice series?
It is. It's a practice series, but I go through some anatomy on there as well, and there's a meditation as well. As we would, making friends with our bodies, basing it on that and creating a bit of self-love, which, as I said, is really quite important. There's also some trigger point therapy. So I use the tennis ball. I mean, it's not a permanent release, but if you're feeling, particularly tight somewhere, then I often use the tennis ball to help release some of that tension. So there's an episode on that as well.
Great. I will definitely have a look at that.
Yeah, and I try and put some stuff out on Instagram as well, as much as I can, free stuff as well. And there's YouTube, same name.
Yeah.
So many outlets. So, and I love hearing with people, with scoliosis, or know that they have know someone that has scoliosis. Yoga's helped me so much. I just want to pass on and help.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was really, really good talking to you. And I will obviously leave all the links for everyone into the description underneath.
Fab.
And yes, great to get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, really nice to speak to you too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.